Show. The Brian and Wolfgang Show. The record store that turned into a podcast. Tales from the Trip. Approximately a decade ago, I was in a car accident. And other than my car being totaled, all that happened was that I got a concussion. I was stopped getting ready to turn into my neighborhood, and I was rear-ended by a kid in a muscle car reissue going at least 50 miles an hour in a 35 mile per hour zone. My forehead hit the steering wheel so hard, I had a ridge across my entire forehead that stuck out about a half an inch. Maybe not that much, but it felt like half an inch. You know, like a knot, but 6 inches long and half an inch high. When I went to the hospital and I was in the CT scan room, I said to the guy, "Hey, at least it's only a concussion. At least I don't have a traumatic brain injury." And he said, "There's no such thing as just a concussion. You have a TBI. There's no way you don't." And he was correct. In the next few weeks, I developed alarming symptoms. I was sleeping a lot, and then I was quickly spiraling into emotions. I would go from being fine into rage or depression in seconds. The simplest frustrations would put me in bed for hours or days, where all I could do was think suicidal thoughts and be uncomfortable. I had developed chronic suicidal ideation. Did you know that if psychic pain goes on for long enough, it becomes physical pain? Physical pain. It really does. And it's a special kind of pain. Kind of a poisonous pain. It sucks. And there was so much more. I couldn't read books anymore without having to stay in bed for a couple days afterwards. It took me a while to figure that out. I couldn't do electronics anymore or build anything anymore. Anyway, I couldn't afford very much treatment from a neurologist. Did you know that insurance covers neurologists, usually, unless you're in a car accident? Then you have to pay cash since, you're unable to work. I don't know, or maybe there's a good reason.
You sound bitter. Why wouldn't I be?
I tried everything. Everyone says that. I tried antidepressants and other medicines, mindfulness, massage, whatever. Nothing worked. Then I discovered that psychedelics worked, and they worked well. Doing more than modulate or soothe symptoms, too. More like turning me back into myself. A version of myself in which I can allow myself to be my true self. That's nice. So that's what I did. I took the plant medicines and I improved drastically. And then COVID came along.
Awesome.
It was great.
Yep.
I've had COVID at least twice, if not 3 times. Did you know that on a scan, long COVID looks like a brain injury? Yep. Apparently, it's true.
Yep.
All of my symptoms came back with a vengeance.
Hi, did you miss us?
And even more symptoms. And then things got weird.
Really weird. Really weird.
I have a friend in Baltimore who had a similar thing happen, except her brain injury was 30 years ago. She's still got a bunch of symptoms back.
When she got the COVID.
I was much worse.
Than I was before, and I realized
when I can force myself to take these psychedelic plant medicines, I get better. I become productive again. I stop having suicidal thoughts and paralyzing anxiety, and my creative side shines, as you can see. I know it sounds scary with all the indoctrination you've been force-fed your whole life. Scary, but slightly interesting because you've seen those news stories from people you can trust, and maybe you even took some mushrooms in college. This is different. Look, psychedelics aren't a toy, especially for someone in my predicament. For me, they have to be used in a serious way. I mean, they can be fun, and they're super interesting, but for me, they have to be approached with purity of intention, with honesty. Do you have a family history of bipolar disorder or psychosis? Or are you on SSRIs or some other psychiatric medicine? If so, you probably shouldn't take psychedelics. And ideally, they should be used with a trained doctor and with a therapist present. Ideally.
Yeah, that's gonna happen.
I do condone psychedelic use, but in very strict circumstances. I'm just a pain in the ass that way. Do your research and be honest with yourself. They may not be for you, and you might not have the right circumstance in which to do it. But you've got to be honest with yourself about that, or you can get in some real fucking trouble.
Set and setting.
Preparation, intention, safety. It's so goofy, but it's true. It's really true. Look, psychedelic medicines are becoming increasingly legal around the world. As a matter of fact, here in Washington, D.C., I can walk into a shop and acquire any plant psychedelic. Technically, they're all legal. The shops mostly carry cannabis and psilocybin mushrooms. Hopefully, soon, there will be shops that sell mescaline and DMT. I can go to a shop in D.C., you know, the place that keeps all of these medicines illegal, and buy mushrooms. And maybe I'll run into a member of Congress.
Bernie, Marge,
but
what's up?
If I wanted to use these medicines with a doctor present, I would need thousands of dollars, and I would need to have the right connections. And I can barely make it to the grocery store. Anyway, I can't wait for bureaucrats and politicians to catch up with science and reality. And thousands of years of humans using these medicines. I can't wait for their permission. I can't wait for an affordable infrastructure to suddenly present itself. I'm suffering now, and I have a condition that frequently ends in suicide. No thanks. I wish there was an infrastructure because I'm always falling behind and I have to pull myself out of a hole of doom and depression and suicidal muck. The last phase of what I now suspect is a combination of long COVID, long concussion, and autistic burnout lasted nearly 2 years before I could manage to talk myself into doing the one thing I know for sure will definitely help me. Believe me, I wish there was an infrastructure for these treatments and they were made available to everyone who needed them. I have a hard time keeping an appointment with myself, but I can keep a doctor's appointment. Now, making a doctor's appointment, that's a different story. We could do an entire episode or an arc of episodes about that. Anyway, enough of me rambling on. Either way, psychedelics seem to be my only option. I've attempted to get into ketamine clinics, but they're prohibitively expensive, and I don't have the wherewithal to get the stuff on the black market. It works, but not as well as the plants, and it works immediately, but doesn't last as long. But ketamine is just one of many gates being well kept. I can't gain entrance, no matter how hard I try. During the pandemic, I finally came to grips with the fact that the old me was never coming back. I started to understand just how disabled I am. One of the other effects of having long COVID and long concussion combined was a total unmasking of my autism. I've known that I was autistic since I was a kid. We didn't use that word, though. When I went to the place to find out what was wrong with me, in the words of my adopted mother, it was at the time when the word Asperger's wasn't well known, and after the ideas of Colvin had taken hold quite a bit, and clinicians were leaning away from the idea that autism was childhood onset schizophrenia. When the doctor, or whatever he was, sat down in front of the three of us to make his proclamation, he listed my deficits first. Difficulty making eye contact, a penchant for repetitive behaviors, being upset by small changes in my environment, my routines, my hyperlexia. I was reading on a college level by the time I was in the 3rd grade. My low muscle tone, my poor hand-eye coordination. Then he said some other stuff, and then he sat back and he said, his IQ is very high, but he's socially retarded. My dad didn't like that. No son of mine is going to be a retard, and we were out of there. I was forbidden to tell anyone about my diagnosis. We spoke of learning disabilities, and even poor hand-eye coordination, but that's about as far as it went. That's also around the same time that I was forced to stop certain behaviors, such as walking up to musical instruments I had never played and quickly learning how to make fully fleshed out musical compositions on them off the top of my head. Most of my stims were forbidden, even or especially in private. The doctor had also informed my parents that my voracious reading was something that I needed to do. So that became a punishment, taking my books away, along with my music. Eventually, it was enforced silence in the house, no talking. So I built a mask, along with entire cities filled with memory palaces. I was an autistic child being forced to burrow further into my own psyche, while simultaneously being required to be a performing monkey in public at my mother's every self-serving drunken command. Then, long COVID unceremoniously stripped that mask away, or the ability to even hold it up to my face. It couldn't have happened at a better time because autism became the word. People were realizing what had been going on with them all their lives. Autism was having a moment in the sun, and I figure it had something to do with the lockdowns and all of the time people got to spend alone, or being forced to be around people all the time. But I suspect someone will eventually figure out that a lot of undiagnosed autistic people were unmasked by having COVID. Anyway, so I decided that my only option was to get on disability. Well, let me tell you, trying to get on disability is, and I am not exaggerating, a uniquely Kafkaesque experience.
Hi, is there a service in the county that can help me get on disability? Oh, there is. Good. Wait, you've just finally hired someone in 2024 to do that job. And that's why I couldn't find out who helped people get on disability. And that's why counselors and psychologists had heard rumors of available help but had never seen it materialize. Well, thanks. Put me on the list. 2 weeks later. Hi, I'm the person whose job it is to help people get on disability. Hi, I'm Wolfgang, and I have long COVID and long concussion. It's a devious fucker of a traumatic brain injury. I need help. I'm suffering. I need real hand-holding. I can't even manage to do paperwork. Seriously, it's a real problem. I just can't do it. Oh, that's awful. I'm here to help you. I'm the person whose job it is to help people get on disability. Just fill out this half-inch stack of paper that's full of questions you'll have a really hard time finding the answers to. And even though we have no say in the matter, we'd prefer it if you would do the paperwork under fluorescent lights. And I'm sure you must have notes of all of the doctors you've had for the last 20 years or so, and your first phone number. 301-555-5740. No, that's actually your second phone number. I mean the one from the apartment before you moved to Marlton into the house, which was clearly stated. And we will need a chronological recounting of every issue you've ever had and the dates on which those issues began and ended. We'll need that all in fine copper plate using archival ink. And if this sounds daunting, you can just check your disability contingency plan. My what now? Your DCP. Surely you've been documenting every detail of your medical life in great detail just in case you needed to apply for disability. They aren't official documents, but all of my friends have them, and we started them when we were kids. I never thought I would become disabled. I didn't plan this. Well, good, because that would probably be illegal. So, you told me all of the details of your condition, in exhaustive detail. I think we really need to focus on, your vertigo. My vertigo? My vertigo? Balance problems really aren't an issue. We really need to make sure you don't fall down and hit your head. What with all the vertigo and all. I've never had vertigo. So, what you should really do is start walking with a cane with all of your balance problems. I need help doing this paperwork. Okay, well just do the paperwork, and we'll get you the help you need.
So it took me a while to realize that what she was saying was, you need to lie instead of tell the truth about what's going on with you. And here's the thing, I can't do that. I'm confused enough as it is, and I can't build a web of lies for a bureaucracy that is trying as hard as possible to not help me. I just can't do that. Anyway, and here's the thing. I don't have any money. I don't have people who can help me. I mean, one of my friends is trying to help me and I'm trying to help him, but we don't get very far. It's really, really difficult. I've heard people say that trying to get on disability is like having 2 full-time jobs. Here's the thing. Anyway, I have few resources.
I have very
I'm
few
easily
resources.
I'm easily confused and easily demoralized. Okay, so you've gone through the last few years too. Things have been crazy. Everything got really weird in the world about 10 years ago. I mean, things got really strange. At first, I thought everything was strange because my brains were well scrambled. But some other people saw the strangeness too. Then came the division, and the increased violence, and the decay of democratic norms, and it spread through society, and people seemed to be... They were given the permission to be a butthole, and a lot of people took that permission and ran with it, on the left and on the right. Anyway, so when I talk to people about this strangeness, they often acknowledged it while simultaneously denying my observations and concerns. We were told by the news and politicians to ignore our lying eyes, and there were all these people... There are all these just normal people out there who are, just saying, I need to help the government with this and help, them spread their propaganda without even knowing what they were doing. I think they're called flying monkeys.
So, this is how weird things got.
Anyway, all right, finally, there was language from the Pentagon in the papers and and press conferences, and this language, the change in language, seemed to indicate that they were verifying that there have been visits by aliens from outer space, or something like that, or something that looked like them. And they were slightly more compelling than usual videos provided by fighter pilots who, that gives them some cachet, the fact that they are flying these multi-million-dollar machines and they're serious about what they do. Anyway, but so that was happening, and it wasn't front page news. It was on page 6 with the used car lot advertisements. I mean, maybe that's all the stories merited, but I've always thought that if there was some evidence of space invaders, there would be front page stories all over the world. It feels like we should be seeing front page stories about the rise of fascist dictators all over the world, or front page stories about how long-standing ocean currents that sustain life on the planet are winding down or changing in ways that might make life on the planet very difficult for us and lots of other creatures. You'd think those would be screaming huge front page headlines every single day, maybe multiple times a day. But we get stories about lifestyles of the rich and famous mixed with idiocracy instead. You've lived through it. Imagine going through the last decade with a condition that makes you question reality and question your perception constantly. It's really weird, and it sort of stops me in my tracks. I become frozen, stuck on the couch, drawing pictures of strange, faceless creatures from other worlds. Over and over again. Hundreds of 2x2-inch panels, each with a different scene from a faraway planet, where things aren't quite as strange as they are here on the planet Earth, even though they are profoundly strange on that other planet. It's hard to move when the world is suddenly made of tricks and traps and confusing puzzles that used to be simple. Confusing puzzles like the way to properly use a bread tie, or how to install a new needle on my record player. Remembering my name so I can write it on the sign-in sheet at the doctor's office. Hi, how are you today? Just gotta sign in here so I can see my therapist. What's my name again? And in the time that the person behind the desk is laughing at my joke, I have the time to remember what my name is so I can write it on the sign-in sheet. Unless I'm in a phase where I'm taking my medicine, my plant psychedelic medicines, which I have to hide, but simultaneously have an undeniable compulsion to talk to everyone about. Just ask my daughter.
Mortifying. He's been doing this forever.
We're talking about medicine that works so well that I need to tell the world about it. But I know the risks of this medicine, and I know what happens when you wantonly tell everyone they should.
Okay, so this is where I start to ramble about the government and whatever, and, the illegalization of psychedelic drugs. Excuse me. One of the points of this podcast is that it's like a version of show and tell. So instead of telling you what I think, I'm going to show you what happens a little bit when I am doing my healing practice. And I did it today, and I had an amazing experience. I decided to listen to Repeater by Fugazi while on ayahuasca, which was something I'd never done. I've always stayed safe and listened to pleasant instrumental music. The message in Fugazi is so positive and so powerful that I had an experience that goes beyond almost any experience I've ever had. I saw that humans can be as powerful as the gods that they describe in their holy books. I was in that mode, even if it was momentarily, and maybe people would say he was having what is called a messianic delusion. And I suppose I was, because I was ranting and raving. And I was saying stuff like, I decree here and now, no more bullshit. I am the Buddha. I am Christ. I am all of the above. I am none of the above. We are humans. We are pure creative power, and we can change the world. And I was yelling this, and I was saying, all right, you glorious motherfuckers, blah, 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 in this commanding voice. And I swear to you, if you had been there, you would have believed me, and you would have felt it, and you would have known that we can indeed do whatever we want to as humans. And here's my document of what I captured after I failed to capture that experience on tape. Why is there nothing? Okay, here we go. So there's some sound. I am actually recording. So the most ridiculous shit has been going on for the last half hour or so. And it's been trying to get away from me. Okay, so I've been trying to record this message. So I'm listening to Fugazi, and I'm tripping on ayahuasca while I do it. So I had this experience just now. And I've been trying to record myself doing it. And it was glorious. I can't even fucking describe it, but I'm going to try. And I know I'm not going to be able to capture it. So my tape recorder that I was using to record, it kept betraying me and shutting down. And I could not capture the magic that I was going through, no matter how hard I tried. And Terence McKenna has described this effect. So I was Christ, and I was all saviors. And during this experience, I decreed that through the power of punk rock, all could be well and all could be healed. And it was this magical moment. And I felt that I was truly embodying that. And I was saying stuff like, whether you call it punk rock or whether you call it Jesus or whether you call it the Buddha or whether you call it Islam, or whether you call it Satanism, or whether you call it science, or whether you call it whatever. It's the same thing, and it's power, and we're humans, and everything you see around you came from our imaginations. We are magical motherfuckers, and we don't need corporations, and we don't need politicians to tell us that we're allowed to do what we do, because we are creative engines, we are living gods, we are all aspects of God, whether you like it or not.
And whether you believe in God or not, and I don't actually.
It doesn't matter what you call it. And once again, it looks like my technology's fucking with me, trying to stop this from being recorded,
Really
which is weird.
It's really weird.
But maybe it's just because I'm high as fuck right now, jamming out to Fugazi in my bedroom studio, listening to Fugazi and trying to talk about the experiences I'm having in personal growth and healing.
Yeah, I think that could have something to do with it.
Anyway, all of you glorious punk rock motherfuckers, whether you know you're punk rock or not, I want you to come along with us, join in the fun, join in the mystery.
Show, the record store that became a
Help
podcast.
us create magic.
Come jam with us.
Let's all make art in the memory of DCCD,
Draw a picture.
in the memory of Lou Geiger, my friend who died much
Do
too
a puppet
early.
show.
And I may have already said this, but
Write a song.
Braille Party and Welcome to Maryland needs to be recognized as a bigger piece of the
Seminal.
DC punk scene than it
Way
has been
bigger.
recognized in the past.
Seminal.
Same with 9353.
So
Same with all these
fucking
weird little
important. Yep.
bands. Same with the
Yeah. All these
Psychonauts.
bands are
Same
so
with all these experimental bands that don't get classed or don't get added to the DC punk thing. It's mostly hardcore that gets recognized in certain bands, but we're going to change that because we have the power of punk rock, because we know what punk rock is. Punk rock is not a haircut.
boy.
It is not even fucking music. It is an idea, and it is a way of life. So come with us, be wildly unrestrained in your creativity. Help us make episodes.
Let's be kids again.
This is going to be DCCD all over again, the best parts of it. We're not going to have to worry about selling people stuff. We can give people stuff instead. And that's our mission. And we want to give them ideas. We want to give them hope, because I went, thanks to Fugazi,
From dope fiend to hope fiend.
to a large degree, I went from being a hopeless dope fiend, hiding in the basement, shooting heroin so I could feel okay in the basement of DCCD while people shopped upstairs so I could feel okay. I was suffering, but I was, whatever. And Fugazi helped me through that. Songs like Close the Door.
Shut the door.
Helped me realize that I don't want to die. I lost my mother. I was born addicted to heroin. And before I ever got to know her, my mother had died of an opiate overdose. And that sucks. And that is very un-punk rock. And I'm not shaming her or blaming her. I love her. And I honor her memory in everything I do. And there's my sister saying something.
Hi, Wolf.
Rest in peace, Tony Salmon, my brother who died too early.
Our brother.
You were a magical motherfucker too. Anyway, thank you, everyone. I love you all. This is Wolfgang signing off and saving this file before it magically fucking disappears like the rest of them. That's what I'm hearing right now. So I was just laying in bed, going through this experience. Laying in bed, going through this experience. Now I'm gonna just hold this microphone. It's easier that way. Hopefully it doesn't sound like shit. I have Fugazi going in my earbuds so loudly that I can't monitor what's going on. I guess I'll turn it down for a minute. Okay. So this does actually sound okay. So I've been laying in bed, having this thing where I was afraid, and I was like recognizing this fear that has always eaten me up. And I'm like, you know what? That fear that I have that stops me from doing things and fucks my life up, it can go. It can leave. I understand that I need a certain amount of stress and what's called, what do they call it? Situational awareness. And I'm not dismissing that. But it doesn't have to be anxiety that eats me alive and makes me want to do bad drugs and keeps me in my room and keeps me in this brain injury state of self-doubt, self-loathing, and all that. I can let that go. And so can you. You know, it might not take drugs for you.
You might not.
And I'm not necessarily condoning that anyone do what I do. Although I do wish they could, because it's fucking magic. And you need to educate yourself and find a way to do it that's safe. And you can't kid yourself. You have to know where your substances are coming from. You have to know the dosage. You have to know all the details. You have to know what to do when something goes wrong, and things can go wrong. Believe me,
I've seen it.
I'm lucky enough to have been using these things long enough that I have some experience, and I've learned the big lesson for me, which was just let happen what is going to happen anyway. Surrender. And like I said, that's something that Fugazi taught me. Being at their shows and feeling awkward and feeling like I don't belong because I'm not punk enough or whatever. Doing the Discord dance. That's what I call it. Nodding my head, you know, in rhythm to the music. And then suddenly surging as the crowd comes to life as one being. I learned to surrender. I've always been so awkward in my body. But I learned how to surrender at Fugazi shows and just be part of the superorganism that was the crowd. And I was one of the people who took the message afterwards, after I'd become part of this superorganism. I was one of those people who took that and tried to enact the message in what I did in my life. I didn't always succeed. I failed often. But I keep trying. And that is why Brian and I are reopening DCCD as an idea, as a podcast, as whatever. We want to help people, and we're gonna try to do it. I need my fucking teeth fixed, and I have lots of friends who need their teeth fixed, and I want to try to help them. We want to raise the money to do it. And then we want to try to help everyone. Yeah. You want to save the world? Yeah, I want to fucking save the world, don't you?
Absolutely.
No more bullshit excuses. People talk a lot about how, this is a Christian nation, or it's a free nation, or whatever. Let's pretend that all that is true, or whatever we believe that is the goodness in our hearts, the deep goodness, the golden rule. Let's go ahead and pretend really hard. Because we know how to do that. Because we all did it when we were kids. And if we pretend hard enough, maybe we can make shit happen. And this isn't some new age manifesting whatever. Brian and I have decided and decreed that we are an emergent property. Because we are. We synergize very well. We are two autistic guys who have always needed each other to get through the world. We haven't been by each other's side the whole time. But Brian's always in my mind, and I'm always in his. I help him communicate his ideas, and he helps me implement mine. And I love him so much.
So much.
And you guys should too. And you will,
If you, yeah,
I imagine, if you get to know him.
you will. I promise.
Anyway, he's a magical motherfucker.
He's amazing.
And he's punk as fuck.
As fuck.
Just like all of us are. Deep inside. Let's go ahead and let's just force the issue. Not force it, but just let's make art. And let's do something so cool that it's undeniable. And let's let everyone be part of it. As
on,
many
everybody.
people as we can involve, let's involve them.
That is undeniable.
Anyway, that's all for now. Wolfgang signing off. Once again, sophisticated fine. My voice is going. You find nothing. Where's the Fugettes? Where are the Fugettes when you need them? The backup singers that Guppy talked about. Anyway, all right. Enough nonsense from me.
The Brian and Wolfgang podcast. The record store that turned into a podcast, and so much more. This is Wolfgang signing off, and there's Brian. In the name of love, in the name of creativity and art and helpfulness and compassion and cooperation, in the name of punk rock, damn it. Thank you. Thank you for listening, and thank you for helping us and for helping me. This is Wolfgang working his way through a brain injury, tripping his way through a brain injury, and talking his way through it. And I am so sick of dealing with the brain injury and the long COVID, and I know that doing this and everyone
Check. So you thought you got away. Guess again, motherfuckers. I'm still talking, because I've been talking since I could talk. And it's what I do. Anyway. So, earlier in the podcast, there's some stuff I want to talk about. Or earlier in this thing, whatever it is. I think it's kind of not a podcast. I don't know. Anyway. Earlier, I was talking about how it seemed that my technology was conspiring against me to stop me from gathering evidence of the excreta bonum, or the good shit, which is a Terrence McKenna and Dennis McKenna story, where during this trip they precipitated this hashish out of the air that was psilocybinated. Anyway, and I think then Terrence tried to show it to someone, it didn't work. And there was other stuff like that, I think. Anyway,
So I was thinking, I was like, what the fuck? And it is really strange because there were several incidents where the file should have saved just fine, right? So I'm thinking that, and then the program did things it had never done before and has not done since. So then I was thinking, wait a minute. So when that was going on, what else was going on? Well, there is also the factor of that there weren't like tiled patterns on things or fractals on things. Everything was fractal and it was multi-dimensional. At one point when I was working on this, trying to get the recording to work, and I was like trying to see the screen through the crawling fractals, I tried to press a button and my finger went through the phone because I was in another dimension. Now, I don't know what that would have looked like if someone had seen it, but it was the most real thing, even though it was the most absurd thing. I was made of these rotating fractals that were interlocked, and I was just this rotating mass of these fine laser-haired fractal entities, because not only did they have shape and color and depth, but they had emotional intent. They were intelligent. They knew what was going on. Now, I don't know if that is an aspect of my personality or if I'm perceiving these thousands of incredibly convincing, developed alien personalities, these entities. It's pretty amazing. And I don't know what it means. And I really don't care. I mean, it might be interesting to know. Sometimes I feel like this is what happens when you are no longer consciousness in the meat body.
When you're dead.
You just become this. You go back into that space.
That soup.
Where everything is just,
Cosmic.
I don't know.
soup.
This magical mess of the most beautiful art you have ever seen. And it is infinite. And it is your mind. And all you are doing when you do this is adjusting the ratio of the brain chemicals in your head.
Up in your head.
But it does this weird thing. I mean, these amazing things, all these things. Why? Why is that in all these plants and animals? It's everywhere.
And you take a little bit of this stuff as a mammalian with a mammalian nervous system, and
I
this
kind of
happens.
suspect
Why?
it's like, did you ever read Roadside
sense.
Picnic or see the movie Stalker, the Tarkovsky film? It's about these places in the Soviet Union, I think, that there are these zones, and these aliens have left behind detritus from their picnic, essentially. That's kind of the metaphor I think that's used. Anyway, and these guys called stalkers go in and they collect these weird things that do weird things, and they're not good for you to touch, but they're these alien artifacts. And I think that might be what it is.
But this is
And
good for
that
you.
sounds crazy. Until you do it. Then you go, I wonder, maybe this is some sort of intergalactic communication device
time
that
travel
just has to be implemented properly, and then it can be used to do magic. Magic. Anyway, I don't know, and we may never know, and maybe that's the beauty of it. Anyway, thank you for everything. This is William Wolfgang Allen. Music by me.
Kel Smith is on a couple tracks. He's my musical partner who I finally found a musical partner to work with.
Zero.
And it's fucking amazing, and I can't believe I'm working with him.
Zero. Egret zero. Egret zero.
And by the way, that chaotic fractal mess that I was talking about earlier, it sounds like this song that's playing. And this is a song by Kel Smith, also known as Sus Music, with a K. Anyway, I guess that's all for now. Thank you.
And of course that's not all, because I have to say stuff about how dangerous drugs are and how dangerous police are and prisons are, because these things are illegal as fuck in most places, and they can be dangerous if you fuck around with them, and they should never be used thoughtlessly. They should always be used with intention and knowledge and safety and with purity of intention. If you really, really, really need to watch cartoons or The Fucking Wall by Pink Floyd for some reason, I don't know why anyone would watch that on psychedelics. It makes no sense. But anyway, if you really need to, then that's purity of intention. If you intend to do it for a really good reason, but seriously, be careful, don't fuck around, be nice to each other. What am I saying? All that stuff. Don't call people motherfuckers. I mean it in the most wonderful way. Loving way. Like someone who is profoundly good at something. Like in the musician world. That guy, when someone can really, really play, they call him a motherfucker.
Or they.
Because he's such a badass, and that's how I feel about all of you. Anyway, okay, seriously, this time I'm done. Go listen to some of Kel's music. It's amazing. Listen to my band, Egret Zero. It's just me and Kel, but it's a band. Listen to my solo stuff under William Wolfgang Allen on Bandcamp. I don't even know where this is going to end up. Anyway, thanks for helping.